just because of her natural body chemistry. The gold medalist was denied a fair hearing in her fight against gender regulations imposed by World Athletics. And these rules have forced her to alter her natural body chemistry to compete in national demand. That's not just controversial, but it's also ridiculously personal. But joining us now to unpack this a little bit further is Kegomoditswe Mere from the Commission for Gender Equality. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So what is the significance of the European Court of Human Rights finding that Semenya was denied a fair trial?
Essentially, this judgment highlights justice in sports is not just about, winning. It's about fairness, it's about dignity, it's about access and actually having a voice. This ruling has shifted the global awareness to show that this global awareness has shifted towards inclusive competition. Everyone needs to be included in the sense of competing. It has empowered athletes to also challenge harmful rules like Custer has currently at the moment. And it has also shown that any regulatory body that enforces discriminatory practices or any law or framework of that nature will face legal challenges and public accountability. This is what this court has awarded at the moment. And it has also affirmed the right to a fair trial that not only applies in traditional courtrooms, but it has shown that whenever a decision deeply affects a person's life or an individual's life, it's important that these decisions also uphold human rights principles.
So tell me, what does this look like in context of international human rights law when they acknowledge that you've been denied a fair trial? I think from face value, and I think any person would make the deduction that once you understand that she's been denied fair trial, is that not the perfect time to lift this ban? Let her compete. What does that look like in context of international human rights law?
What it basically looks like is that the court's decision was basically challenging the idea that arbitration panels like the Court of Arbitration itself cannot operate beyond human rights scrutiny. It just made it clear that when decisions affect an athlete's dignity as well as their identity, justice cannot just be boxed into technical procedures. We need an arbitration system that is independent, that is transparent, and it's rooted in fairness. This ruling was just pushing reform. It was urging that arbitration bodies need to transform from their closed panel, from the expert of closed panels into inclusive spaces where human rights are not only considered, but they're also upheld. So basically, this is what this court was trying to highlight, that the power of an arbitration is not just autonomous, it must always be around the lens of upholding human rights.
And now the people who were in a position to give her a free trial, but of course, the fair trial rather, the fact that the person who denied the fair trial, what are some of the consequences for them? Because essentially, does that not kind of go towards ethics and of those legal bodies? Do they suffer any consequences for not giving her a fair trial?
It's not just the court. It's not just about a person denying. It's more around a system, a system and how the proceedings were held in themselves. Because if you look at it under Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights, it clearly states that a fair trial includes impartial proceedings and an equal opportunity for each state party that is involved in those proceedings to be able to state their case, and also access to an effective remedy. So essentially, this court was highlighting that the importance of their trial, that it's not just about affording a person a day in court. It speaks to a process that takes place in protecting a person's dignity and ensuring that there's accountability, like you just rightfully indicated about what happens to them. Accountability needs to be ensured in these instances, and it also gives a person a genuine chance to seek justice. This principle is also a cornerstone within our own constitutional realm in South Africa. It also helps to limit the abuse by government or any relevant authorities. In this instance would be the the sporting body. So hence we at the Commission believe that it is important for state parties to intentionally commit to reform their framework to ensure that it eliminates discriminatory practices against all women and against all levels of society. That's where the accountability then comes in, when decisions are made and these decisions are balanced against what the law provides for and what should happen, and entities ourselves will push and advocate to ensure that is upheld.
And I think the legal world, legal industry teaches us not to get too excited sometimes, because there's a reason why I'm saying this. It's because we see this and we're saying yes, she won, but not necessarily, because the ban hasn't been lifted, so she still can't compete. And it's unfortunate that these are years of you not exercising your passion the way that you want to. Do you think that this result of the acknowledgement of being denied a fair trial, do you think it can result in the ban being lifted? I mean, how much more do we have to go through? I mean, it took also a few years to get this ruling. So, what does it look like? What do you do after getting a ruling like this?
Basically, it's not just like a clear-cut answer, like you're saying, It goes in a bit deeper than that. But if you look at it on a positive note, you would know that this judgment basically tells athletes that they're not powerless, Even when a system may seem untouchable, as this judgment may seem to highlight, international law is evolving to defend the dignity and inclusion of competitive sports, which is also a cornerstone of our democracy, like I mentioned. Like Chapter 9 institutions like ourselves are empowered to be advocating and defending against such regulations in place. And also, it is important to also, for viewers or listeners to also understand that if the law calls for international human rights protection, no one is above that law. Yeah. There's a principle that is set in Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is an international instrument, legal instrument. It states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and their rights. The law is there internationally for for frameworks of this nature to continue to be challenged. The lesson out of all of this is that any law that has been developed needs to reflect human rights, and it's not just about exuding authority. You need to ensure that humanity is also reflected in these laws or regulations that you impose on a person.
This is it's very, very interesting to see this play out. What do you think the Commission for Gender Equality also has a role to play to support Caster Semenya, and also not just her, but like athletes all around? What is necessarily the role of CGE?
Okay, CGE, like I've mentioned, is a Chapter 9 institution. We are mandated in terms of the South African Constitution to promote and protect the attainment of gender equality. So, as you've seen, we did play a supportive role in this instance in terms of lobbying and trying to get enough support as possible for Caster. So, for example, the role that we can play, especially within our jurisdictional bound in South Africa, is to lobby stakeholders within the country to advocate on the fact that these regulations as they stand do not conform to the principles that are enshrined in Chapter 2 of our Constitution. And with that being in place, these are the type of regulations or rules that we in South Africa, and according to our Constitution, cannot allow enforcement thereof. So we will continue engagement with the relevant stakeholders, and if it is necessary and it's as a matter of last resort or push comes to shove, we will have to be able to involve our courts in the interpretation of these rules that have been imposed, not being uplifted within a global space. But that upliftment in the global space does not necessarily affect how the courts of South Africa may relook into this matter. So that is where the Commission of Gender Equality is coming back to South Africa to rethink this whole judgment, to look into possible avenues to follow in terms of stakeholder engagement, or whether there's possible recourse in which the space of South Africa can actually take on this matter.
Kegomoditswe, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing better rulings and more human rights being taken seriously and more positive rulings. I think, we don't really take into account the mental strain that goes into going to courts and fighting matters like these, and sometimes also feeling powerless. Especially going against the likes of World Athletics, like it feels intimidating. So a ruling like this, I think, steers us all in the right direction.
No, definitely, I agree with that.
Thank you so much for your time, and have a blessed Sunday.
Thank you.
It is 8:32 Central African time. That was Kegomoditswe Mere from the Commission for Gender Equality. We're speaking on the matter of Caster Semenya and the ruling, the fact that she was denied a fair hearing in her fight against gender regulations imposed by World Athletics. So the moment you think your voice isn't loud enough, trust me, it is just as loud. You just got to keep fighting. 8:32 Central African time. Let's enjoy some jammy jams. I see some coming from Uncle Waffles, who's all the way representing Africa in Portugal for Afro Nation. One fateful day, we will be able to go to Afro Nation. Mara, it costs money. Hey, it's a very, very expensive activity. It is 8:33 Central African time.